I'm your host, Kaylee, and this is Rebel Wellness. Welcome to Rebel Wellness, your new go-to podcast for redefining your health and well-being. I'm your host, Kaylee, also known as Coach Kailes. I'm stoked to have you with us. You just joined a community of amazing souls who are ready to break free from the confines of the often outdated and confusing health advice all around us. In a world overwhelmed by quick fix diets and unrealistic beauty and body standards, us rebels stand for change. If you're like me, you're exhausted with the confusion and polarization plaguing the social media health scene. My mission is to empower you to step beyond today's diet culture and adopt a holistic health approach paired with the foundations of science for lasting, well-rounded wellness. Through teaching you how to tune in and embrace your mind, body, and soul, we'll reject one-size-fits-all solutions, realigning you on a better path that honors your unique needs and values. With new episodes weekly, this podcast is your new sanctuary for deep wellness exploration, featuring expert advice, real-life stories, and a true commitment to your growth. Your journey to better health and simplicity in life begins now. Let's jump right in. Welcome back to the show, Rebels. I am so glad you are here to listen to today's episode. It's a bit of a snack-sized episode for you today because I am going to be sharing with you a little bit of the updated thoughts on Ozempic and semaglutides in general, because it is really important as they have added some more specific disclaimers to their labels that I think are really important for you to know and be aware of, as well as hear a professional's thoughts of how to kind of interpret that as a consumer, because it is all over the place. I think at this point, episode 23 of Rebel Wellness is my initial chat. That's a very long format chat. It was one of our most popular episodes of last year, unsurprisingly. And it is worth listening to if you're somebody who is considering taking a semaglutide or GLP-1 receptor peptide medication injection. Ideally, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the other things and some warnings, but mainly I wanted to chat with you today about a little bit more of how my opinion has continued to develop as more and more people have taken this med, and some of the things I really don't like about it that I think are worth you being aware of, like I was saying. Before we get into it, I want to also let you know of something really exciting that has gone live today, St. Patrick's Day. If you're listening to this after St. Patrick's Day, it's already live. My very first online educational course called Flexible Food Foundations, which is going to be your ticket to food freedom. Honestly, I made this course to combine all of my coaching over the last decade with real humans in real life. It's not just the science of what this should technically be, which is a lot of the courses online nowadays. And it is probably going to be one of the most down-to-earth real courses that you could possibly take to teach you, all the things, reframing and realigning your understanding about the food you eat, your relationship with food in general, and just straight up, macros. I love teaching macros because macros helps you understand why the food you eat does what it does to you and how to manipulate your food to support your goals and the health that you want. Nothing else teaches you that. And there's so many really overdone macronutrient courses, and that's not what this is. I'm not going to make you get your scale out for 2 months and follow these really rigid macronutrients and log it in this crazy, Google sheet or some junk. We're not doing that in this course. This course is all self-paced. You can choose to do as much as or as little as you'd like, but it is built to be about a 4-week course so that you can kind of get all that information in at one time and then take it from there. So I am really proud of this course. I love it to death, and it is version 1. So we're going to be kind of giving you guys a better rate than it will be in the future. It's definitely going to become a bigger and bigger animal. And if you sign up now, you get in while it's early before it starts to grow, which is kind of one of the best things about being one of the first cohort, we'll say, of this course. So you can go to coachkailes.com and click on My Courses, And you will find all the links you need to get over there and purchase the course and start whenever you'd like. This is a really great time to do it because it will help you prepare yourself as you get ready for summer. If you're trying to do a summer bod thing, or maybe you're just really trying to realign your health and you're just tired of actually some of the summer advertising and toxic narratives that are all over social media, as they always do. And so I really hope that this course empowers you and helps you really gain the clarity of understanding food and really break free from diet culture for good. And join our newsletter. We have a million different ways on coachkailes.com to join the newsletter. You can also go to the link in my show notes for all of these things. We will also link the course in there as well. So if you're interested in either of those, I don't spam people. It's going to be just a really good, in-depth fitness, nutrition, mindset, one time a month wellness newsletter. And you can also go check out the new online course, Flexible Food Foundations, from there as well. Join us on Instagram at Kaylee Loren or at Rebel Wellness Podcast. And there's a lot of great little community oriented things there that I like to do and continue to grow. And there's access to me. You can always DM me, say hello, throw me a question. Maybe if you want to throw me a question to put on the podcast, I have been highlighting listeners' questions on little sections. And so that would be a great time for you to do that as well, or rather a great place for you to do that. All right, so let's get into my Ozempic thoughts. Updated version, that is. So right out the gate, let's just talk about the updated FDA label for Ozempic or Wegovy, kind of any of these semaglutide medications. And there's a lot more on the market now. There's Mounjaro, and those are all the brand names. A lot of them are just basically 1 or 2 peptide receptor semaglutide injections. And there's a general understanding that the way that that active ingredient works, no matter the brand name, is you're at risk for the potential side effects no matter what. So the newest addition from the FDA is that it can cause intestinal paralysis and or intestinal blockage. Sometimes they're kind of one and the same. Well, intestinal paralysis does cause intestinal blockage, which is a huge life-risking situation. And it's been reported and happened to enough people on the FDA Adverse Events Reporting System, otherwise denoted as FAERS. And for just Ozempic itself specifically, there's been nearly 17,000 cases reported. And the most serious cases of adverse reactions to the medication have been roughly 7,000 to 8,000. And again, these are just reported. So sometimes they call things something else if there is something else involved, like heart failure or something like that. Sometimes they won't point towards the drug. Big Pharma is weird, okay? And there's been roughly 200 deaths from Ozempic. So that's just, again, specifically Ozempic reports. And that's a lot of people, okay? And that's a lot of people under a medication. So it is something to be aware of, that the side effects of thyroid cancer, pancreatic failure, pancreatic cancer, and now intestinal blockage or intestinal stenosis is what it's also called. We don't want to see that or have that happen to us if we can prevent it. Of course, it's not always easy to know, but you can find out from getting proper labs and being monitored by your practitioner that whether or not you might be at higher risk. They can check your enzymes of your pancreas, they can check your enzymes or your levels of your thyroid hormone and see if it's in good working order. If you have anyone in your family who has had pancreatic cancer or failure, as well as thyroid cancer or failure, you probably want to stay away from these semaglutide medications, because that means that you could be at a higher risk of having those adverse reactions. Do note, you cannot get a pancreas from someone else, and you cannot get a thyroid from someone else. Those are organs that you cannot transplant. When they're gone, they're gone. And when they're gone, well, not pancreas necessarily, but when kind of actually, when your thyroid is gone, for sure, you die. You cannot live without that. And then at the same time, for your intestines, it can be really problematic for you if you want to consider living a life with colostomy bag, and hopefully they can reverse some of it. It's such a gray area, guys, that it's so new in the sense that it's like not been widely used by all different types of bodies and metabolic conditions for more than a decade or so. It hasn't. It just simply hasn't. And so we are kind of the little test rats right now, unfortunately. And because it does have really, really effective results for so many people, I mean, we see it all over social media, especially with celebrities, especially, that it is really tough because you kind of have to walk the line of, do you need those kind of results? And is that risk worth the result versus are you just trying to shed like 20 more pounds, like you're Kim Kardashian or someone, and you're just trying to get skinnier? You know what I mean? Those are risks where it's like, yeah, that's really probably not worth it. Like, let's be real. So I want to talk about that for a second. So now that you kind of know some of the updated adverse health things, and I wanted to make sure that you knew that you can get checked and or think about your family history on both sides and see whether or not you are genetically at risk for any of those adverse reactions. You know, there's a lot of other adverse effects, but those are some of the ones that are obviously potentially life-threatening or just very serious, you know, can be life-changing even if you don't die. So I always like to talk my clients through that stuff because it is really important that you know just how much or at what you are risking when you follow a potentially quote unquote fad diet pill, you know, this in case, or in this case, it's a shot. But continuing on what I was going to say about, you know, the different angles to consider. So, like I had mentioned in episode 23, I see the use of this med on multiple sides. It's not just like who are for it and who are against it. If you think that way about Ozempic, I very much encourage you to kind of open your mind to a lot of different potential options as to why somebody might use this med. So, one of the things I've seen it be very successful for with some of my female clients, I've only had a couple use it that when I've been working with them. It's dominantly kind of against my recommendation, except one of them, I'll say maybe two of them, were in very unique metabolic conditions. They have legitimate metabolic dysfunction where stuff isn't working the way it traditionally should. The whole calories in, calories out argument straight up isn't working. You know what I mean? And so that's where there's a lot of nuance to fat loss in general. And that's where Ozempic, I'm just going to call it Ozempic, but semaglutides, you know, all of the GLP-1 receptors, where they come in because they do seem to really finally move the needle for some people who just cannot get their body to respond and lose fat naturally. AKA, they're going to have to go get liposuction or something like that to literally remove it versus actually getting it to move with exercise and nutrition and all that stuff. There's a unique time in history right now where unfortunately we are so exposed to so many environmental toxins, low quality food, lots of alcohol, high stress. You know, there's females quite literally operating in masculine energy for way too long. And we're seeing the really bad adverse effects of that. And that might be a little woo-woo sounding to you, but I know firsthand as a business owner, it doesn't mean masculine and feminine do not necessarily, those are energies, okay? They do not necessarily denote that being in masculine energy makes you a man and you're better than everyone and blah, blah, blah. That's not at all what it means. Masculine energy is that you're just more decisive, you get stuff done, you're not really leading with your heart, you're leading with your head. You know, you're doing the things, making the decisions, usually a lot more stressed, all that kind of stuff. Feminine energy is more empathetic, more compassionate, more healing, more rest and digest, you know, leads with the heart. So those are things that are really important to consider when you think about how today's society, especially for those of us on the West Coast and East Coast, we're kind of the hustler states and we overdo it. We overdo it and it's societally accepted. And so for us females who have been doing this for a really long time, we're starting to see things like adrenal fatigue, metabolic dysfunction, sadly, a lot of disease, cancer, all this different stuff. And that's because, from at least what I've observed, we've just been really neglecting that rest and digest. We're just go, 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 go. And I know that for sure for myself, for a whole ton of my boss babe clients. And just, it's not good. And unfortunately, I do see this being an easy way for this category of female to get the fat loss that they've been really looking for. Because no matter what, if you're not sleeping enough, if you're not eating well, you're not resting, you're not managing your stress, fat really doesn't want to go anywhere on the female body. It wants to hang out and protect you because it's like, yo, what is going on? What are you doing? Like, this is, you must be going through something life-threatening because you are still doing this and it's been going on for years. And so when people, like I've talked about before in other podcasts, when people consider things as like adrenal fatigue and stuff, it's usually because it's talking about your adrenal glands, which sit above your kidneys. They pump out your cortisol. When you've been pumping out cortisol chronically for too long, your adrenal glands quite literally get fatigued. So I know a lot of people don't like to acknowledge that terminology, but it's just a good blanket statement for that concept because that is a real thing that is happening and we are seeing that. So people who land in those categories are good candidates for Ozempic potentially because it could help you finally get that fat to move. But at the same time, odds are pretty strong that you've been neglecting your body for a little while and you may not be in a great position to kind of throw your body into that quite literal starvation mode while you're on Ozempic. The thing I don't love about Ozempic, guys, is the fact that it pretty much is slowing down your digestion to the extent where you don't get hungry again because your breakfast is still digesting by like 6 p.m. And especially for people who are not instructed to reduce their dietary fats while they're taking Ozempic, because dietary fats are the hardest macronutrient to digest, which is what can help mitigate blood sugar spikes when you're eating normally, but it is problematic for those who are on Ozempic. And that's where you get a lot of people who are constantly facing nausea or getting barfy, who are just having stomach problems, maybe oily stools. It's because the fat is quite literally not digesting and or it's sitting there too long. So you really want to avoid as much high fat foods. You want to stick to like your healthy fats like olive oil, nuts, nut butters, coconut oil in moderation, all those kind of things are better to stick towards versus like French fries and all that junk. And that's the hard part, is a lot of people who are going on Ozempic maybe haven't been working on healthy nutrition habits beforehand. And so when I've observed a lot of different YouTube videos and in real life accounts for their using Ozempic, it's become apparent that a lot of them have not been working on good lifestyle habits before going on it. So they are like, I'm not hungry. I don't feel good. I don't want to eat anything. I just want to get McDonald's fries because those sound kind of good right now. Instead of, I should probably make myself like a nice lean stir fry or, something like that. Or I'm not going to say salads and stuff because that's kind of dumb. I don't like pushing the salad narrative as always being healthy, but salads are very nourishing and fibrous and all that kind of stuff. So you can make them nourishing. I'm not talking about like an iceberg lettuce salad, but smoothies can be good for people who are on Ozempic because it's already mostly digested. So your intestines don't have to do as much work. There's a lot of different things to do, but I would say the main thing is just really try to reduce and remove as much of your high fatty foods, like fried things, as possible. But it is also important to kind of circle back around and say that if you haven't worked on any of your nutrition habits before taking Ozempic, do not expect to have long-term success because quite literally you need to have that stuff down pat as you go into it and as you exit it, because the drug is designed to be on it forever for a lot of the diabetics. However, it is absolutely possible to go on it for a bit, move some body fat, and then get off of it. My client who did do that, he has only been able to get off of it and stay off of it because he has been realigned with a very consistent nutrition and fitness routine. He's not been perfect all the time. There's definitely been nights out and things like that. But more often than not, 80% of his lifestyle is still more health promoting forward. So that's something I want to bring back around for those of you who have been considering Ozempic, you really should work on mastering your nutrition and understanding it before you go forward into using this med, or at the same time, so that you can get off the med, because the goal is not to be on the med forever. We don't know what that looks like for longevity, especially for somebody who's in their 30s, 40s, or 50s, like you're very young. You really don't want to be on a med that's as intense as this for the rest of your life. I mean, we're seeing Ozempic face, Ozempic butt. That's what happens when people lose too much fat too fast and their body is malnourished. We do not want that. So I guess this would be a great little time for you to consider taking my macronutrients course, because it will help you make your way out of that med much faster. But that is not at all why I made that course. But it's a great resource, and there's a ton of great resources out there. You could also, if you're somebody who wants to work in person with somebody, you can find a local nutritionist or wellness coach in your city, in your town, whatnot, who can help you. There's also usually people who are like diabetes consultant dietitians that work at the hospitals that could work in your insurance. A lot of the times, though, they're pretty cut and dry. They don't give you very good attention and advice. So again, I do usually err towards going towards a functional nutritionist or somebody who can give you a little bit more attention if you need it, because I've had many clients, especially my diabetic clients, who are like forced through their insurance to work with the dietitian. And they always tell me they get way more out of our sessions together than they do ever with the dietitian the hospital gave them. So that's something, it may not be that way for everyone, but it has been many times in my career so far. And it's kind of by design. They see a lot of patients. They know that it's kind of like they don't get enough time to really work with you, get to know you. And so it's not as custom and usually not as successful. But that would be kind of my advice if you're somebody who is considering going on Ozempic or is currently on it and you're concerned that you might fall back into your old habits. Really work on all of that stuff, because the way you understand food and the way you treat food is going to be your only ticket out of using this med for life. So one more thing I'll say about different people who might be candidates for this med are people who have a lot of food noise. So unfortunately, the way that we have engineered food nowadays has really put us in a position where now our brains are literally addicted to food, which unfortunately was the sinister side of the corporations, big food corp and such, and their goal of helping make their sales consistent and abundant. And unfortunately, now we've had like decades and decades and generations of people who have been eating the same way, raising their kids on the same foods. And so there's a lot of metabolic disorders because we have been introducing foods that are hyper palatable, meaning that they're really addicting. It's like chips and all that stuff, the stuff you can't put down. And they affect us negatively in the way that they have a lot of fake or highly processed ingredients and just molecules of food that are not meant to be food. They technically can count as food, which is why they're in our food system in the US, but they shouldn't be eaten, or they shouldn't be eaten at the quantities that they're being eaten, unfortunately. So that's a huge reason why we have a lot more metabolic dysfunction and disorders in the day-to-day world. That's why we have a just insane amount of morbid obesity. Again, medical term. It's not a slandering term. And it's not good for the trajectory of our health, our healthcare system, just straight up life quality for everyone. You know what I mean? And so if you are somebody who has struggled with the food noise and all you can think about is food, your body has now chemically been changed to being obsessed with food and you can't put stuff down. There's a whole lot of stuff they're researching right now, especially for people who have been raised on these foods since they were a kid and have been obese since they were a child. And you literally could not just calories in, calories out and lose weight. You literally could not. They're finding that your body actually fights losing its homeostasis of being that larger body fat percentage. And so that's a category of person. If that sounds similar to you, you might be a candidate for trying this med at least for a couple years to see if you can get the needle to move and help reduce that food noise to help you finally get into a healthier body fat percentage. This is one of the categories of people or patients I think could benefit from a semaglutide injection. And it would definitely matter for you to, again, know your health history, work on your habitual changes especially as you're using it. And if anything doesn't feel right, then get off the med. But if it can finally help you move like 50, 60, 100 pounds and get you into a situation where you don't have as much food noise, your body is getting healthier just by default of being a lower body fat percentage and having less excess estrogen because body fat creates estrogen. For females specifically, this will help you a lot potentially. But again, I'm not specifically recommending it. I'm just saying that if that's a category of person that resonates with that topic and that situation, you might be somebody who legitimately can benefit from this med. And I know that there's a lot of people that talk back and forth about like, oh, that's cheating. It's not doing it the right way. La, la, la. Like I said, there's a lot of people, especially if you've been that body fat percentage for more than a decade, you will have a really hard time, quote unquote, doing it the right way. And that's why I call it calories in, calories out. That's the right way, quote unquote. Eat less, move more. And it doesn't always work for everybody, especially people in that category. I'm not going to share too much else about my thoughts. We could talk about this all day, but I wanted to keep this like a little snack-sized episode for you. If any of what I talked about resonated with you, I'd love to know. You can DM me at Kailes Loren or at Rebel Wellness Podcast. Come join our community there. It's growing, and I really hope this episode helped you think through and just be aware of a little bit more sides to the Ozempic conversation. But as always, celebrate your strength and nourishment, walk with confidence, and I will catch you next week on another episode of Rebel Wellness. Hey Rebel, I just want to say a huge thank you for tuning in and sharing this space with us. Before we sign off, I've got some exciting ways for you to stay connected and to take your wellness journey even further with me. First up, if you haven't already, make sure to swing by CoachKailes.com and sign up for our newsletter. It's your go-to source for the latest episodes, exclusive content, and a whole lot more wellness goodness delivered straight to your inbox. Check out the show notes for those high-quality tips on nutrition, fitness, and just overall well-being. Follow us on Instagram at Rebel Wellness Podcast and my flagship page at Kailes Loren. We're all about building a community where we can share, inspire, and grow together. So I would love to see you there. Now, if you're looking to reset and realign after a vacation, a hectic work season, or just because you feel like it's time for a healthful cleanse, I've got something super special for you, and it's 100% free. Head over to stan.store/Kailes and download my free realignment detox guide. You can also find it at coachkail.com in the freebies section. I'm sharing my unique holistic approach to help you cut back inflammation, improve your skin, and even shed some excess weight with this guide. So trust me, you're gonna love it. Go download it for free now. But last but not certainly least, if you've got a burning health question you'd like answered on the show, or if you're curious about my one-on-one remote coaching or group courses, don't hesitate to visit my website and reach out to me there, or hello@kailesloren.com is my best email for contacting me. I am here to support you on your journey to wellness, so do not feel afraid to reach out. All right, Rebel, catch you on the next episode.